Good morning to you all, and I bring you warm greetings from New Delhi. It's a great pleasure for me to be talking to you today, but I feel a little bad that I have to use this medium to talk to you or communicate with you. I wish I was also part of this conference, and I know for sure that this conference is deliberating on a topic which is very crucial, very important for the future of agriculture, for the future of food, and of course for the future of sustainable development. Having said that, let's be clear, only a few days back, or a couple of weeks back, Norman Borlaug passed away. With that passed away an era of modern agriculture. And agriculture from where the world hasn't drawn any lesson. In fact, we have gone much deeper into a trap which was laid out about 40 years back when Green Revolution was introduced in developing countries, starting from Mexico, India, and of course, covered parts of Asia, parts of Latin America, and left by and large Africa. Now, the last 40 years, what has happened? What has transformed agriculture? I think it's quite obvious to all of us. I don't have to illustrate it, but let me still point a couple of salient or let's say outstanding issues that I thought I should bring it on the table. The impetus or the thrust on chemical fertilizers, pesticides, and the hybrid varieties, including the hybrid varieties, has done tremendous damage to agriculture in the developing world. We know for sure that in India, for instance, where we have had about 200,000 farmers committing suicide in the last 15 years or so, and about 40% of the farmers wanting to quit agriculture if given a choice. The development crisis is the outcome of the negative impact or the deleterious impact of the Green Revolution technology. The technology has essentially done damage by way of destroying the natural resource base. And once the natural resource base is destroyed, whether it's a sick soil or the water table becoming very low, water mining taking place, pesticides contaminating the environment, the human food chain and so on, we are in crisis. And that is quite borne out by what is being demonstrated by the farmers, not only in India, but in much of the world now. Now, at the same time when we were witnessing a terrible crisis emanating from Green Revolution technology or the Green Revolution model of agriculture, there was a kind of emphasis which we ignored, and that was a emphasis or the march towards changing the climate pattern, changing or adding on to the global climate debate. There have been ample debates, and I'm sure my distinguished colleagues on this panel are going to talk about it, that roughly the estimates vary from 18 to 25% is the impact on global warming from agriculture alone. And much of it, as you all know, is coming from chemical fertilizers, pesticides, and the hybrid varieties that we have been using. Now, have we drawn in lessons from this? Well, I think we'll come back later, but let me now move on to another area. While Green Revolution was at its peak, we witnessed all over the world a renewed thrust on boosting trade. And as you all know, after the 2007-2008 food crisis, and also the economic meltdown that the world is witnessing, and still not emerged out of it now, or even after spending $20 trillion to meet the exigency, the fact of the matter is that we are fast moving into an arena where they are going to compound the crisis that we have already created. The World Trade Organization, which emerged in 1995 and has now completed about 14 years, has been on the forefront of adding on to the destruction from agriculture. Now, when I say agriculture, let's be very clear. When we introduce agriculture into international trade, it's quite obvious you're not going to do agriculture on bullock carts and so on. You need to apply fossil fuel to actually trade for more for economic benefits or for whatever you call it, for economic growth of the world. But the fact of the matter is, look at the irony that today the world is discussing, if you look at internationally, there are two major agreements that are being deliberated all over the world. One, of course, is international trade, what is called a free trade. The other one, of course, is the fight over global warming. Now, isn't it ironical that both these treaties are actually contradictory to each other? Because global climate change, they are not discussing the role of trade in climate change. And when it comes to trade, they are not discussing the role that it will play into activating the crisis by way of global warming. So we are all sure that where the world is moving towards it, they want to make a fast buck out of it, whether it's climate aberrations or whether it is agriculture or by way of trade. Nobody is actually interested in sustainable development. And as my friend Walden Bello has said very clearly and categorically, that if you really want to address the issue of climate change, you have to hit at or you have to address the issue of economic growth. The model of economic growth that we are witnessing all over the world, which I call as a buoyant economics, is actually at the base of all these crises that we witness today, whether it's in the case of food or agriculture, and also in the case of climate change. Now, over the last 14 years, the WTO, as I said, has only added on to the woes of the farmers in the developing world. Now, let's look at it, what is on table now. If the Doha Development Round completes the way it is supposed to complete soon, then I can tell you my understanding is that a study which Analyst had done some years back and which has elaborated and said categorically brought out something which is very important. There are only 149 or so third world countries which are classified as third world countries in this world. 105 of these countries have actually become food importing countries in the last 30 years. My worry is that if the Doha Development Round comes into place, the remaining of the third world countries will also become food importing countries. Which means the world will be divided into two parts. One part of the world, which is the OECD countries, the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, will be the food providers, and the developing world, whether it is third world countries or the emerging economies or whatever you call it, all these countries will be standing always with the wrecking ball in their hand. So this is the way the world is now projected in the era or in the future that we are now going to witness, if at all the WTO comes into place the way it has been designed. Why I am worried is because if you look at what is on the table now, developing countries have been given two protection mechanisms or measures. One is special products, the other one is special safeguard measures. So let's be very clear. DST, if you look at it, what is on the table now, only 12% of your tariff lines can be quote-unquote protected, of which only 5% of the tariff lines have to escape any tariff cut. Which means, as Pascal Lamy has said a couple of years back at the Hong Kong Ministerial, that special product is a kind of a carrot that is dangling before developing countries. And developing countries negotiators, let's be very clear, are too keen to grab the carrot. They don't even want to understand what the implications are in store for farmers and for agriculture. The special safeguard measure that we are talking about is too complex. It's not going to make any worthwhile sense for developing countries. Although there is a debate going on whether it should be, whether the surge rate should be 140% or 130%, it does not matter. Because by the time you calculate all these kinds of things, the damage would have been done. In fact, the last talk that failed in July 2008, it was very obvious, and if you remember, I had written there very clearly, that it was basically not the opposition put up by India by way of special safeguard measures that broke the talk, but actually it was the next target or the next point on the agenda, which was the issue of cotton subsidies of America. America didn't want to take a chance to reduce their cotton subsidies. It would have been politically suicidal for the government to do so. So therefore they shifted the blame to India. And India rocked home because the then Commerce Minister knew there was a political mileage he could drive out of this kind of message, that he is becoming a savior of developing countries' farmers. Actually, he had agreed to the special safeguard measures that was carried out by European Union in that particular meeting, the talks that failed.